quality feedback. So for folks who are familiar with the human-centered design course, this is where we're in that test part. So after you've defined and you've ideated and come up with really cool ideas, and you've prototyped how those ideas might work, you put those prototypes and those ideas in front of people to get feedback. This is important for human-centered design, but it's also important for the product management discipline, in that this feedback will help you see, are you on the right track? And you can then plan pivots into your roadmap. So best way to get feedback, don't ask people, you watch them. Observing direct behavior with your product is the best way to gather feedback. Put it in front of somebody and ask them to solve a problem with it. This is all based on the Steve Krug model, which is a really fast way to do user testing. It's one of those models that I really like because you can pick it up and try it without needing a major outpour of equipment. You actually don't need anything. The idea with the Steve Krug model, and he talks about in his book, Rocket Surgery Made Easy, is you ask people to complete tasks with your prototype, as I said before. You observe their behavior, but you cannot help them and you can't prompt them. And the weird thing about it is you ask people to think out loud why they use your product or your website or your mobile app or your whatever. And it's a little bit weird, but once people get used to it, they start, telling you. And the idea is that you want to uncover the hidden expectations and behaviors that people are doing as they use something. So you can get really incredible feedback on creating human-centered design products by using this methodology. So this is a script. Again, for folks who are in the last class, we covered this. I have a handout, which you might have not have received yet. But the idea is that you can tweak this script. I don't expect you to memorize it. The major points of this script are, you're telling people that they're testing the product, not you, and they're not testing themselves. So they can't make a mistake. We're just looking for it for feedback. You also tell them that, I didn't make the website or the tool, even if you did, because people will sometimes not tell you things just because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So even if it is yours and it will hurt your feelings, just tell them, oh, I didn't make it. So, tell me exactly what you think. And then the other key is to tell people that, think out loud. You're looking for their stream of consciousness. And if they get stuck, you can't help them, but you would ask them, what would you do? What would you expect to do? And you're looking for their thought process, when do they give up, basically. If they get completely stuck and they can't advance, then you can, once you've gathered all your information, you can get them past that point and continue. All right, so the way this model used to work, it used to be fairly difficult. You used to have a lab set up, but with everyone using Zoom, and it's so much easier now. Generally, you have your product, which is your website or your whatever, and you have a volunteer sitting at that, your test subject. And you have one person on your team who's the facilitator. They're the only person that's really talking and interacting with the test subject. And they are focused on prompting the person, asking questions, getting them to think out loud, and asking them to, elaborate on what they're thinking and feeling. The rest of your team is either in another room on Zoom watching, or if everybody's remote, they're just kind of off camera and off microphone. And you're just observing and taking copious notes at what you see. So for example, you're looking to go like, oh, why are they clicking there? Why are they not clicking there? So it's a team effort. So ahead of time, you have to have the facilitator and everybody familiar with the script and the things that you're going to ask the person to do. And I often say, don't have the facilitator take notes other than maybe follow-up questions, because you want the other people really taking those notes so the facilitator can focus on understanding and taking note of any like body language, facial expressions, the other non-verbals that the test subject is doing, so they can take account of that and then share that with the team later. It's like, yeah, they said that they were really happy with it, but they were grimacing the whole time. So that type of thing. Watching a usability test can be very frustrating because people are clicking on weird things and you're like, why? I'm also a big fan of giving a usability test is somewhat qualitative because you're asking people to tell you what they think. So they're telling you their opinion. There's another tool I like to combine with it, which is a quantitative tool. It's called the UTOT survey, which is the Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use of Technology. It's a survey format that I used it in grad school, actually, and it's a very good predictor of if someone will use a technological tool or not. So the way the questions are structured, you can look at the results and say, yep, that person will use this tool when they walk out the door or they won't. And because of that, we're able to use this for head-to-head comparisons of tools. All right. So another key point that I'd like to say is oftentimes when we're doing testing, people are afraid to do it because they're afraid, oh, we're serving millions of Californians. So we need to test hundreds of thousands of people for it to be statistically significant. And what research has found is that's not true for usability. That's true for like political polls or like opinion surveys type of things. But if you're using usability, people tend to follow archetypes and patterns. So you're okay with just 3 users if they represent your target audience well. And the idea is that you find most of your design flaws with that third person. You can see here in this curve, the number of new problems found really starts to taper off and it becomes a long tail after that third person. So this is what I recommend that my teams do. Block out a day. Test 3 people. At the end of those 3 people, teams should come together and make changes to the prototype based on what the feedback was for the first 3 people. Then test 3 more people. And then after that, revise it again from that set of 3. And then bring in the last 3 people of the day. Do those 3 tests and then revise it. So in one day, you can have 3 major revisions to your product, and you'd be surprised by what you learn in a very short period of time. So that's a way that I tell my teams to do their user testing is you block off a day to do it, and it's incredible.